talk about black women, hey, we haven't had it this bad in a long, long time.
So I'm thinking about her and about the generations of women, black women, history have paved the way for this moment tonight.
Hello, hello, friends and family. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Oh my gosh, we are so excited to have you. And I am proud, so proud to be a part of this presentation, this summit, this conversation. Welcome to the Fierce Vulnerability Summit, a conversation about and a celebration of colored girls' truths, trials, and triumphs. My name is Shannon Stott. This is Mark, and I am your host, and they are your translator for this evening. And I am so glad you're here. Tonight, we explore what it means to be Black, proud, part of the LGBTQIA community, and of course, fiercely vulnerable. Sophia Casey has written a book about the strength of Black women and how they move through and relate to the world. Today, we get to connect with amazing people who are moving fiercely through the world and vulnerably sharing their experiences with us. Sophia, who has served for more than 30 years as an agent of change for followers around the world, been featured in Success Magazine and on Fox News and SiriusXM Radio, who is a professional certified coach through the International Coach Federation, as well as the director of First Impressions, a task force for a former vice president of the United States, brings us all together tonight to remember that we must not only be fierce and vulnerable, but we must be vulnerable enough to make room for the fierceness of others. Please welcome Sophia Casey.
Well, hello again. Thank you all so much for being here. I want to pause for a moment, and I'm emotional already, and we haven't even started yet. So I want to pause for a moment, and I want to dedicate this conversation, tonight's panel discussion. I want to dedicate it to my family members and my friends who have been a part of this community and who have struggled and who have experienced challenges for just trying to be who they are. And so you know who you are, and I dedicate this conversation tonight to you. And I trust that tonight we will have lots of conversations of fierce vulnerability. I also want to say thank you to each and every one of you for being the contributors to this book, actually debuting as the #1 new release for dramas and plays by women on Amazon. Like, how do you explain that? There is no explanation. People have tried to explain it. They've asked me to explain it. And the only explanation I have is praise God. That's the only explanation I offer. And I thank you so much for all of your support. And my request of you tonight is that you certainly share your voice, that you share your questions, but you don't share your judgment. Leave your judgment in the other room. Better yet, take it outside. Take it outside with the trash and leave it out there. So this is a judgment-free zone. This is a safe and sacred space. And my request of you is that you honor that and honor these amazing, amazing panelists, amazing experts who are bringing all of their fierce vulnerability tonight. So yes. Thank you, Shannon.
Hi. All right. You're very, very welcome. Sophia, it's not just you, right? It's not just you talking beautifully about this topic and having a conversation all by yourself. It is a lot of amazing other people. So let us get them here. Also joining us tonight are Danielle Kodra and Cole Monroe. Started their relationship as high school sweethearts in New York as two teenage girls. When coming out to their parents, created an avalanche of adversity. They would eventually split, only to return to love 7 years later. Since then, they have each opened up their own small businesses, had a COVID elopement as a replacement for their long-awaited 3-day wedding, and Cole came out as transgender. Danielle and Cole are passionate about sharing their story with families of all kinds in hopes to help humans dismiss the confinement of labels and lead with love. Please welcome Danielle and Cole.
Hi, glad to be here.
Hi, thank you so much for being here.
Yay, I'm just excited that you're here. So thank you. Thank you. All right. We also have Jeremy Wells. Jeremy has been part of the San Diego Black LGBTQ Coalition since 2018 and served on the board that brought the organization to official nonprofit status, the only Black LGBTQ organization in San Diego to do so. Currently, he serves as secretary on the executive board. Please welcome Jeremy Wells. Yes. Hello.
Hi. Hi, everyone. It froze on my bad. But hello. It's nice to be here. I'm super excited to talk about everything we have in store to talk about. We're going to answer the questions to get into this kiki. It's going to be great.
Perfect. Yes, you're in the right place then. We also have Naisha and Samantha. Naisha and Samantha gave birth to their daughter in February 2018. The duo is very passionate about representing the LGBTQ community, which led them to become first-time authors with their children's book titled Umi and Uma, the story of two mommies and a baby. The two pridefully represent women of color within the LGBT community and were the first married same-sex couple of color who participated and won HGTV's hit game show Flea Market Flip. The two enjoy sharing their journey through parenthood and stressing the importance of understanding personal finances, because we're all destined to secure the bag for ourselves and generations to come. Please welcome Naisha and Samantha.
Hey.
Hello.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yes, of course. Of course. We also have Marnika Shelton, aka Nika. Nika is an engaging, vibrant artist, educator, and activist with over 25 years of experience. Her work is designed to drive home complex, layered, and controversial narratives, engaging viewers in conversations that challenge socially and culturally normative viewpoints around race, gender, sexuality, class, and religion. Founder and operator of Nika Shirelles LLC, the host of the It Cast Real Talk on Sex, her work exists to empower and inspire people across all cultural backgrounds. Please welcome Nika.
Thank you. Hello. Glad to be here.
Yes, you are welcome. Glad to have you. We also have Reverend Dr. J. Exodus Hooper is a current PhD candidate within the School of Interdisciplinary Arts at Ohio University and ethical humanist clergy. Their word-working emphasizes human freedom and interconnectedness through the embodiment, intuition, creativity, and improvisation. Their most recent production, Keep Livin', express the importance of cultural care and self-care. Please welcome Reverend Dr. J. Hello.
Hey, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Here we go. We also have Monica Pickett, is a veteran of the United States Army. She served as a medic in Operation Desert Storm and received an honorable discharge in 1991. She is also the author of a monthly column where she shares her thoughts, experiences, and advice about coming out, same-sex marriage, divorce, and a variety of other topics. A contributor to the Huffington Post and the Unleashed Voiced magazine, please welcome Monica Pickett.
Hey, how are you guys?
We're so well.
I am so happy to be here. I am so happy to be here. Gay Pride is every day, but this is such an honor to be here with you guys.
This is so good. And of course, we also have Sophia Casey. Sophia Casey.
I'm here. Live in living color.
Well done. I'm glad. So we are all here. I am your host. We're going to get this conversation started. Sophia, would you like to open us up with a reading from your book this evening?
Yes, I will open us up with a reading. I actually have a little bit of a surprise. I'm actually going to read from my new book, Part 2, Fierce Vulnerability, Part 2. Yes.
Thank you.
Where I'm about a third of the way through with writing it. So you all get the hot off the press, fresh news. Okay, so just a little bit. This is from Simone's version. I relaxed down into my seat, still riding the emotional high of the night. Vanessa shrugs out of her designer coat, her emerald green pantsuit, outlining her slim body to perfection. Fingernails flashing. Well, I do declare, she starts up with a thick Georgia accent. I do believe Miss Ava finally done it. Whoever would have thought that my roommate, the women's studies major in the busty black tank top, would have landed a high-rolling gig like this. She certainly is something. She finishes with a theatrical shake of her head. She is all that, Jean-Marie puts in. I wasn't exactly sure how this would all end up when she decided to run. I figured her past would catch up with her somehow. But it was the strangest thing watching her up there on that stage. She was a goddess. Like she was born to stand up there with those folks. Jean pauses for a moment and her voice softens. I swear she looked the spitting image of Gladys when she gave that speech. But those two don't even look anything alike. It took my breath away. Our drinks have arrived, interrupting the moment. I reach for my cocktail, eyeing Jean as I take a sip. Gladys, Ava's oldest sister, had passed away a few years back. She and Jean-Marie had been thick since college, and in the months since I've known Jean, I've watched her quietly grieve Gladys's passing. Ava has never mentioned it. Oh, honey, I purr, giving Jean a quick squeeze. I'm sure Gladys was there with her tonight. Jean smiles appreciatively, her eyes glistening. Well then, Vanessa says with her glass in her hand, what am I just aching to find out? I'm aching to find out what fine man will be escorting our Ava tonight. Will it be a senator? Yes. A foreign dignitary? I don't know. Or some handsome 30-something staffer? Snaps for the Cougars. Vanessa is giggling now. Is she still going with Clay? I didn't see him in the swearing in. No, she's not with Clay anymore, Jean-Marie answers, her orange scarf swishing back and forth. And she's a bit touchy about it, so I would just be careful how you handle that subject. We'll just have to wait and see who she's charmed tonight. As if on cue, Mayor Ava Whitman pushes back the curtain and the room explodes with cheering and whistling. She raises her hands in the air confidently, a wide grin on her face, and then waves off the ruckus. She moves forward into the crowd, shaking hands and sharing embraces, an empress amongst her subjects. She had arrived alone. Wait. Could that be? Jean-Marie says once the noise has died down a bit. Is that Ava's mother? Shit.
Dun, dun, dun. We have to wait until it comes out. I love it. I love it. Okay. This is great. What we're going to do is softball it. Easy stuff here. So if you're watching, if you're at home watching it with your drink in hand, this is the time for you to participate. So this question is for everyone on the panel and for you at home. Here it is. Which letters, if any, in the LGBTQIA do you relate to? Use those letters to describe yourself. Mine would be Q, and I would say quads because I've been working out. That's what I would say.
Yes.
I would say quads. So what, if you're out there, you can put in your letters or letter or letters. Which one do you relate to, and how does it describe you? And we'll go with anyone who raises a hand in under 3 seconds, or I'll pick somebody on this panel. Oh, good. Great. Samantha, yes.
I'm Naisha.
Naisha.
So mine is Q, and that's queer. I really appreciate queer being a part of the LGBT acronym, just because like it doesn't label me. Even though people are like, well, what is queer? I'm like, that's who I am. That's who I am, period. We don't have to discuss it further. Even though some people use it as questioning, for myself, I'm identified as queer.
That's queer. Excellent. Excellent. Who else? Anyone? Yes.
I'll say L for love because I'm all about that universal love, baby.
I love it. Yeah. Excellent. I thought I saw Monika's hand. Did I?
Monica. Me, Monica?
Monica.
Oh, yes. You know what? I would have to say the L for lesbian because I came out in the early 80s at the age of 13. So I'm not a lesbian. I like to say I'm the lesbian. So the world had to catch up.
Perfect. Catch up, world. Get on this boat. Get on it. All right. Who else? Yes, Shay.
I'm the plus. I'm just the plus. Everything about the plus is like is always in addition to, right? Perfect theater segue to anything. It's never instead of. It's always in addition to. My life is always in addition to, and I don't think I'm not bound to one subject or anything. I just go beyond as much as I possibly can to this meta world that allows me to live and have a bold love.
I love it. We have so many. We have Lena in the chat is saying A for asexual and or aromatic and awesome. I love that. Well done. Thank you, Lena. Yes. Who else? Who hasn't gone? Sophia, you haven't said one.
So I'm going to say the L, and I'm going to say it stands for love and all the letters. I'm just taking all
the letters. I'll take it.
Mostly love.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jeremy, anything?
Yeah. So I mean, okay, so the G obviously because the gay, but like also the B depending on what man makes me mad that day. But in general, I just am just very much here for the entire LGBTQIA+ community. I love when I'm a big fan of reclaiming, and I love when the straight people call us the alphabet mafia, because I'm like, yes, we are. Try something. Try me, please. I want you to. I want you to. It's a mafia. Let's go. Like, so yeah.
Excellent. Love it. Nika?
Yes. I love both of those. I mean, everyone's answer is amazing. For myself, I'm going to go with G and A for generous and abundant.
Ooh, I love that. Yes. We have Janice in the chat, liberated with the L. Yes, loving it. Cole, have you put in your word yet?
I haven't. I was trying to sneak out.
Yeah.
I feel like I want to claim so many of them. B, because I've been really into riding my bicycle lately. I don't know why, but I'm really into it. T, because obviously because I'm trans, and that it took me a long time to accept that T portion of the alphabet. So I just, I hold that one real close. And Q, because Q's just a fun letter.
It is, right?
It's a fun letter.
Because you're cute.
I mean, look at it, has a tail.
Because I'm cute.
Cute.
All right, this is the second softball of the night, and obviously you in the chat, please chat away in it. I want to know, just in general, what's the most human thing you did today? What's the most human thing that you did today? What is it? You can raise your hand or just jump in there.
Woo. Okay.
Yes.
So, so I'm going on vacation to Las Vegas tomorrow, and so I like to set out my outfits like in prior, so I know exactly what I need to wear, like what everything needs to be. I need to have like a proofread moment, and today I looked at my outfits on my floor. I'm looking at them right now, and I was so tired of packing, and I haven't even put them in a suitcase yet, but I was so tired of packing that I just laid on them. I just starfished right on top of all my clothes and took a little mini nap, and it was amazing. That 30 minutes was glorious. It was lit. So yeah, just more of that content for me, to be honest.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, naps are great, and naps on outfits that are giving you energy. Very good. I'm loving that.
Yeah, you got to get into it.
What else? Who else?
I think one of the most human things, and this is going to be, I don't know, for me, like just not only today, but just after just like going through like series of not seeing people, it's just been nice to be in affiliation. And the most human thing I've done with that affiliation so far is hug. I appreciate a good hug. Hug is healing. Hug is wholeness. Hug is home. It just is a grounding situation. So it was really nice today to have like several hugs that I have not experienced in probably over almost a year and a half or so, just because we have been waiting for, and in many ways still waiting. I just want to hold space for those folks who are still discerning their path with vaccinations and who are masked up, but just honoring that as well. It's just like hugging is such a beautiful thing that we have that just offers us a beautiful interconnectedness.
Yeah, excellent. Anyone else jump in there?
I want to normalize crying. Crying is a normal thing we are supposed to do. When I was younger, I was told big girls don't cry. Yes, we need to, and we do. Okay. So I cried with my therapist today, and I just had to get it out, and I felt so much better after that session.
Good. Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Because yes, everybody cry. I see Janice said, I spiritually embraced a caller who was hurting. He felt it, and I appreciated being able, a human. Touch is pure. Yes. I love that too. Yeah. What else? Sophia, what did you human today?
What did I do that was what did I do? I would say, today what I did that was human, I allowed myself to laugh at myself, because I was being all wacky this morning, couldn't get it together, discombobulated, and just allow myself to laugh at myself and all my humanness. And it was a whole lot of humanness.
Yeah. There's yes. Monica, Cole, Danielle.
I think the most human thing I did today was trip down the stairs. Because we all make mistakes. No, you can laugh. Don't be sorry. You can laugh.
That's the human thing to do is, know. And I think for me, I did a couple things that I'm proud of. I set a boundary, which it's a lifelong struggle. I'll just say that. And I checked in on a friend that I know was going through a hard time.
Yeah. Well, I'm visiting my grandchildren in Chicago. So the most human thing I did today was I asked both of them. My grandson is 10 and my granddaughter is 3. And I asked both of them how their day was. And it just brought so much joy to hear them tell me all about school and what they learned. And they usually say nothing. I'm like, your parents paying all this money for nothing. Yeah, but that brought me a lot of joy.
That's so good. Lena, my most human thing was a couple days ago. I got to see a new brand, absolutely brand new that I absolutely love now. I love that. I humaned. My son, my stepson, looked at me and he said, "Do you want to play video games?" And I literally was like, "Me?" And I felt like happy and weird at this. It felt like tripping down the stairs, Cole. Like, me? Oh, yeah, yes. What do I say? What happens now? So good. We humaned. We all humaned today. Perfect. Did everyone human? Nika, did you human? Did I get your human?
I humaned and I didn't share. So I took care of my friend's 6-month-old baby today so that she could have some space in her life. And we got to laugh together, me and the little one. He's starting to laugh now. And I think that's one of the most pure things in the world, you know, from a child. So
this is good. Yes. All right. We're all warmed up. You in the audience, you're warmed up. We're all warmed up here. We're gonna get into it. So the first big discussion question that I'd love just everyone to chat about is this. At the crossroads of being Black and being on the queer spectrum, when is the most important time to be fierce, and when is it most important to be vulnerable?
I kind of feel like those two go hand in hand in a way. I feel like to be fierce, you have to be vulnerable. That like any sort of extreme emotion is some sort of vulnerability. So I feel like the two for me are all the time. Like I'm just constantly, it's kind of a flow between those two.
I think for me, I think I'm pretty fierce when I'm around like a crowd of people where I know that there's judgment there. So I tend to go into those rooms more fierce. And then I'm more vulnerable with like my people, like people that I know is safe and more open to receiving me as me. Yeah.
For me, I'm fierce when I walk into a room. I am balls. I am myself.
Every day.
As soon as I meet people, they know I have a wife. They know we had a child. I am myself. But when it comes to being vulnerable, I have to know I'm appreciating myself for accepting questions because people ask us such questions all the time. How did you do it? When did you do it?
In what position did you
do it? If I can help, I am okay with that. But if I sense some judgment, then I'm going to bring out the fierceness even more. But I'm all about helping.
Yeah.
Well, I would say I had to practice a lot of fierce vulnerability preparing for this conversation tonight, and fielding questions and comments and opinions, and responding back with my fiercely vulnerable self and saying, we will be going live at 7 p.m. Eastern. I'll see you then or not. And it's okay. And I respect you, and I respect your opinion and your values and where you are with all this conversation, with all the alphabet. I respect it all. And I'll still be there at 7 p.m. Eastern. So lots of fierce vulnerability leading up to this conversation.
I think that Cole mentioned it. I think it goes hand in hand in that I found that in terms of fierce and vulnerability, I've had to be both of those things when I was uncomfortable, or when I was being judged, or when I was supposedly outed. I had to be both those things. And at different times, depending on the scenario, it wasn't comfortable at all, but I had to do it.
Yeah. Would you mind digging a little deeper for me just in that? You said it wasn't comfortable at all. Just tell us a little bit about that.
It was interesting when I was maybe my last year of business school at Johns Hopkins. And I happened to be, hey, Sophia, I happened to be in an ethics course. And again, I have been, I've been out since I was 13. But, again, people make assumptions in this class. And the ethics professor, he goes on to give his personal opinion about gays in the military. And so I'm just sitting there, just becoming more and more incensed. And he's like, I don't think, gays should be in the military. They should serve. And, I hadn't come out to my classmates because I was like, well, I'm here to get my degree in education like everyone else. Why do I have to come out? I'm out. It's no big deal. But, I had to ask him in that moment, first of all, excuse me, with all due respect, have you served in the military? And he turned beet red, and then he was like, no. And I said, well, as a lesbian who served not only in the military, who served in wartime, I find that quite offensive. And so, as you can imagine, no one knew I was a lesbian in the class, and they just went up. They were like clutching their pearls and everything. And I was like, why did I have to do that? But stop making assumptions. And it was very uncomfortable, but I felt that I had to do that.
Yeah, that's a fierce and vulnerable right there are absolutely hand in hand. Yeah.
I began to think about it immediately, a kind of a quote that when I think about putting fierceness with vulnerability is a moment to dare yourself, to dare to love yourself. And, I think about moments for myself, like waking up every moment to be the person that I am is a dare without prescribing to a system, without using white social definition to define my liberation, without using the frameworks of capitalism to suggest that I am enough. I deeply believe that it is a moment to really dare to love yourself in whatever current condition, position to be in. I find that fierce vulnerability is an asset to both being Black and queer. They are intersectional, and they not only are intersectional, but they are revolutionary acts to dare you from the very moment you wake up to say, I am going to seek meaning in my existence, and then conclude it with understanding that you have fulfilled the very moment that you became and honored the person you are and dared to love yourself throughout the day. I think that's something that really sits with me as I often participate in a lot of white spaces, a lot of middle class white spaces, particularly the academy, and things like that I use both simultaneously Black existence and queer existence to dare to love myself.
I saw Nika.
Yeah, I have to say I absolutely love that we're having this conversation at the intersections of Black identity and queerness. I think that it's very easy as an activist, it's very easy for me in the spaces that I go into to be a sexual rights activist or a Black activist and not being allowed to be both. Fierce vulnerability, like those two things are not mutually exclusive. And when I think about it, to be fierce is to be proud of my identity, to be proud of myself, to be proud of every level and every fiber of my being, down to my sexuality, and to not allow that to be squandered. And on the vulnerability side, as it's been said, like to really love and to face myself and to face the places where it's not easy to look all the time, or where people don't, like where it's easier to avoid, and it's a cultural thing. So I really see those two things as being hand in hand and very necessary, as is this conversation.
Yeah. Both of you, you and Jay said something that I want to move us into more chit chat. Jay said, this idea of daring to love yourself. And you mentioned pride, Nika. And so I'm wondering, and this is my question, the feeling of wanting to fix yourself comes from shame. How does one go about eradicating shame, and what is the benefit? So you're talking about loving yourself and pride. And I feel like there's this balance, right, of shame. In order to love yourself, you have to release shame. So So that is my question. How the feeling of wanting to fix yourself comes from shame. How does one go about eradicating that shame, and what is the benefit?
So to hop in, freedom. Freedom is the benefit. There are so many aspects to eradicating shame and how deeply important it is. Shame is a silent killer. It can definitely stem from depression, self-hate, regret, so many things. And when shame is allowed to fester, it can take us out of the game. So not letting shame continue to perpetuate is absolutely step one. And eradicating shame comes from letting go of judgment. Like Sophia said at the beginning of this talk, really letting go of judging yourself and judging others and allowing people to be. Also, not teaching in a way that is shame based. So, like when you're like, oh, you're too much, or you shouldn't do this, or you should do that, those types of things perpetuate this disempowered context that is shame. So, really stepping out of that and allowing ourselves not to judge ourselves and not to judge others and to love brings about a freedom-based context and an abundant context. So.
I feel that.
Go ahead, my friend. Please. By all means, speak the word.
Yeah, no, I definitely feel that. I think it's about, reclaiming, right? I think it's about, being in a room full of cisgendered straight people and saying, hi, my name is Jeremy Wells and my pronouns are he, him, his. It's about, I felt like putting on a little gloss and a little blush today, and I'm going to walk outside. It's about little moments where you can, reclaim, like literally reclaiming like who you are and grabbing your power back as a person, as human, as somebody who exists on this planet just like everybody else. So I think that is like a surefire way to fight shame. It's not like an overnight thing. It's something you learn and you grow into and you really come into.
Jay, you were about to pontificate, I feel.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking because what really resonates for me, and if anybody knows much of my work, I mean, Lena, who's on here right now, like we identify as freedom folk in my community. We really, really do, and so I really resonate with the idea of freedom, and my partner and I talk about often like this kind of freedom-ish practice, and shaming. When we think about shame, and when we think about it as someone who, you go through pastoral care, you go through all this training, and we talk about, we spend a whole entire segment on shame because of what people go through just mentally, and it's so exhausting. It actually paralyzes the body. Shame is a parasite to the mind and to the body and then to the soul. And one of the things that we have to think about with eradicating it in many ways is to help people understand that in conjunction with shame, you can in many ways practice healing. Healing doesn't mean that you're whole. Healing is a process. And I think in many ways when we talk about, and Shannon, as you so eloquently put it, in the idea of constantly fixing, the thought is that after a while, we have lived in a society that says fix. Capitalism says fix. You name it. Patriarchy says fix, like as if it has full control over your process. And we wake up hoping to be a product to an industry that doesn't even care about your body, your experience, your story. You are culturally erased, or if you're not erased, you become integrated or assimilated, and you become so caught up in how many ways that you have failed a system that does not even want to see you. And for me, I often tell people, fall in love with the process. Love yourself through the process, because the process is the very thing that you can hold and sit with the juxtapositions of healing and shame. You can sit with learning and guilt. You can sit with love, and at the same time, all of that is in tension. And if we honor that as within our own human condition to create human flourishing in many ways takes the very storms in our life and allows for us to transform and transfigure into the people that we are, even on this panel. Beautiful, fierce, queer, and vulnerable, Black, colored, all kinds of formations that we are doing in this space right now. That's what shame is, how shame is eradicated.
Mm-hmm.
And you said something in there where you said, like, society is always telling us to fix. Like, who is to say what fixed is? What is that end point? You know, like, there is no end point. Even when it comes to eradicating shame, like, I don't think that there's a way to completely erase shame, because I'm always going to feel shameful about something. It's what I do with that feeling afterwards. It's the important part, you know?
So I really wish I had the reaction button here, like just to throw it up there, clap, smile, everything. Dr. J, you really, really said it. I can definitely say for me, my personal experiences, right? I need one of identifying where the shame is coming from. Are we shaming ourselves? Are we allowing other people to shame us? And just identify. If it's ourselves, we know we need to work on ourselves. If it's someone close to us or whomever it is, definitely address them, because that is you standing up for yourself. Personally, I've been seeing my therapist for over 2 years, and I honor those sessions because it allows me just to speak and understand what areas I need to work on. So today's session was, Naisha, you have to stop criticizing yourself. You are your own critic. Like, nobody's saying this about you. You are saying this about yourself. And I am identifying that. So it is up to me to take the next step. Am I reading a book? The imposter syndrome is something I need to pick up again, because I read that book, but if it's still within me, I need to address it. So always working on the area where that needs to be addressed. So if someone's shaming you, you need to put them in their place and not accept it, because if you accept it, they're going to think it's okay. So there's a myriad of ways, but the first part is identifying.
It's funny because when I think of like shame, I revert back to like my childhood. On like where those feelings and those experiences that I had. And I remember when I was younger, my father said I had 2 strikes. So I'm Black and I'm a woman. So damn, I already knew at that point, you know, I was not going to be with a man. So I was like, I done struck out. So it was like that particular point where I realized that there's nothing else that can limit me, because I already felt like I struck out. I already felt like I was at like the bottom of the bottom. So I had to figure out, like, what can I do as an individual to uplift myself, because I'm already at the bottom. So it got to the point where I had to teach myself how to love myself and to love every part of me, like every quirkiness, every, you know, different side of me, all my insecurities. And it was through taking that time, like as a child, that I was able to gain the confidence where I can live in the life that I live today. Because, you know, it's hard out there sometimes, you know, we're out there. And I come from a Caribbean household, so that's a whole nother, you know, threatening of the life's type of story. So it's interesting that I realized that once I took ownership over my life and ownership of how much I'm appreciate myself, that it doesn't affect me as much of what other people think of me. So when they are in this time, when they're dealing with their issues, I'm already dealt with mine. So it doesn't impact me, because I've already dealt with the, you know, as far as like how I feel about myself. So that's also something that I wanted to share as well.
I think, I'm sorry.
Go, no, get it.
I think for me, you know, at such a young age, you know, I think God blessed me with a healthy sense of self-awareness. And I think I always felt judgment more than shame, you know, and at a very early age, you know, my grandparents would take me to church and, you know, fire and brimstone, you know, the pastor, you know, gay people like that are going to hell. And And at such a young age, I was like, who are you? Like, you're not God. You know what I mean? Or you tell me that I'm going to hell, but the pastor or the bishop has a whole nother family downtown that nobody's talking about. Or, you are embarrassed, or you disown the gay and lesbian or the transgender, child, but everyone is protecting the family child molester. Okay. So I was always about judgment. Like, you can't shame me because God made me who I am. And, that's how I felt, but it was always judgment. And I was just like, shit, I like girls. I can't help it.
We're going to take a tiny turn here, just a little turn. I know Naisha and Samantha don't have that much time. And so I want to get a little bit of this conversation. When we're talking about shame, especially for Black and then Black people, and being part of the LGBTQIA plus community, how do we see shame eating away financially in our relationships? Because it does, right? It affects us. So what are the ways, and how do we spot it? How do we fix it?
I want to jump in. I know Samantha's going to kill this question in the best way. But I also want to say thank you for having us before we go. I have a book reading of our children's book afterwards.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. So, oh my gosh, when it comes to shame, these name brands, ever since I was a child, they have to have a pair of Jordans. If you don't have Jordans on, then you're not with the cool kids. I remember I want to say I'm proud I've never had a pair of Jordans because I feel like that put me in a category of trying to prove myself, I remember I was in 4th grade and the kid had, his sneakers came from Payless. I saw them myself. I shopped there. 4 lines, so they were not Adidas. He put white out on the last line. And that is because, unfortunately, the kids were teasing him. So he felt like, I don't have this money, or, my parents don't have this money, so I'm going to try to fit in. And, it's just like the idea of like the money is not there, so I'm shamed. And, I'm just going to grow up as not where I want to be. So many topics can be touched, but definitely, Sam, take it away. I already know you're going to kill this question.
I think like what, as far as like, our generation, well, I don't know, we all in different generations, but I think like as people that are living today, like what we don't understand, there are systems in place for us to be in with the situations that we are in. And there's a lot of things that connect with your feeling, because usually when people are purchasing things or buying things, they're trying to make themselves feel better. And as Black people, we get attacked in all these different areas and all these things in our different life, which affect our finances, which is done with intention. It's intentional, because if we had more financial literacy and we had more income, we can support more people within politics. We can support more people that can change the laws. We can, support more of our youth that are out there not being supported or not being, having the finances to have the life that they want to live. So it's just, it's us as, people, it's important for us to be financially conscious and making sure that we're doing things that is to protect our community and making sure that we're doing things to uplift our community. And we have to first start within our household and kind of segue that within communities so that we can be able to help people that need our help and be able to support people that are out there that are doing what we need them to do so they can be in positions to make change. So yeah, I have a very passion within like financial literacy, but also passion. I do a lot with youth and making sure that our next generation is growing up having better financial habits so we can change our future, so we can give our, next generation more options so that they can live and not have to, and be more fierce within society.
Thank you. You said this thing. This is going to be a very, very bland question, but you said the thing. You were saying talking about finances, just being literate about it. And I'm wondering for everyone, talking about sexuality, talking about the LGBTQIA plus community, having this conversation is important. Why? Why is it important? Especially specifically within our homes. So even if you are not part of this community, why is it important to have the conversation in your home?
Ooh, love this one. So as a like, so I'm a huge advocate of like representation, especially like in the media. So like I am very much so. My friends will be like, "Have you seen this show?" And I'll give them the quiz. I'll be like, "Is there any black people in it?" And they'll be like, "No." And they'll be like, "Are there any queer people in it?" And I'll be like, "No." And and I'm like, "Not watching it." And so like, it's just it's very much like about like I'm not sure how to connect this with my next piece, but I'm very much like a huge fan of like your people talking to your people. So like I have a lot of friends who are straight. I have a lot of black straight friends. So when I talk to my black straight friends and we're like having conversations, we're kikiing or whatever, and we get onto the subject of racism, of course we can agree. When we get onto the subject of homophobia, of course we can agree. But because if we didn't agree, then you wouldn't be my friend. But my thing is, if I'm talking to you and you consider me a friend, that means you have to take this conversation and take it to your straight friends. Because they're not gonna listen to the fucking faggot who's saying it all the time. They're gonna be more likely to listen to you. Like, and I feel the same way with like white people. Drag your racist grandma, drag your racist, like they're not going to listen to the people who are oppressed. So since you are of that same social economic status, or you're that same color, or whatever the case may be, talk to them. They're more likely to listen to you than they are to listen to the people who are oppressed. So like, I just am a big fan of like, excuse me, of straight people. If you have a queer friend, advocate for them in those spaces, because I know not all of your friends are saying what you say to me. If you are like a white person, you consider yourself my friend, don't let your white friends talk about what they're not going to listen to me. Like I said, talk to them and explain to them in ways that they understand, because you understand them more than I can, and you can connect with them more than I can. Ooh, child, did I really just lose my train of thought? I'm sorry, y'all. But yeah, basically that's really what my point was. It's just I really am a big fan of like those people who will stand in a space where there are no queer people, or no queer out people, and say things, and like I said before, reclaiming, taking your power back, standing up and saying, hey, my pronouns are this, even if I am a straight person, because that, even little things like that, encourage other people to be like, okay, this space may not be safe, but this person, this person, and that person, that is a great start. That is a great start. Yeah, that's that. I'm gonna mute myself now.
I just want to step in and say that was the perfect explanation of allyship and what that work looks like for everyone out there listening. Like doing exactly what you said, exactly how you phrased it. Thank you for that, and just dropping that knowledge.
But if we get into more conversation and we're chit-chatting and whatnot, I also just want to say one more time, thank you so much. I know you have a book reading to go to, and so I like, as you are weaving in and out of the conversation, thank you for being here, the both of you. We all very much appreciate that. Appreciate you both. I'm still like sitting on this a little bit. I feel like people have things to say about this idea of why it's important to have these conversations in our homes, whether you're in this community or not in this community, what it has to do with our generations, the future generations. Somebody said something about that in the chat, what it has to do with older generations that are before us. I had a event to happen earlier this year where my mother-in-law, my grandmother-in-law, who is 90 something years old, said something to the effect of, I don't know why they're trying to pass laws where men can use female bathrooms. That I'm just not sure where that's coming from. And I, in my ness, I was like, mm-hmm. Oh yeah, me either. I don't know why. And yeah, see that head nod. And you're like, yeah. In my head, I was like, you are close to death. You're close to death, lady. And I don't know if I have the power right now. So I'm just gonna let you 90 something it out. Go ahead. But there is but I've had other conversations where people have had those conversations with their 90-year-old so-and-sos. So what help us to understand why it's important to speak up. One, it's for the practice, but what are other reasons and why?
I say it's the more people hear it, the more it normalizes it, whatever that explanation is. When people aren't hearing any kind of back talk to them and they're just spewing their opinions, I hate to phrase it that way, it just came out. But when they're just spreading their opinions and no one is challenging that, they're just going to continue to do that. They're continuing to teach people younger than them to do that, and then it's just going to perpetuate. So speaking up is just the first way of saying, hey, world's changing and we don't all agree, but also world's changing, this is normal now. So I think that that's really like a big piece of that.
I think another thing that I sit with is the first question that kind of comes to mind, even in trying to answer this, is like, have we ever gotten advice from people who are in relationships? We all know that love doesn't work in the same way for everybody. And I think honestly, if I was to be, I'll be critical because I'm a theologian in this way. But if Adam and Eve failed, I would be willing to try anything. If two heteronormative folk failed the whole entire world, if that is what we were supposed to go off of as a framework of relationship, honey, give me another option. And you can go ahead and come after me later. But in the end, I think too, the other component to that is asking that question of what can love do? What can love do? And what can it do? Because I begin to also think about Dr. Cornel West when he makes the statement that love, love is what justice is what love looks like in public, and tenderness in private. And when we think about that, that is in many ways should be the catalyst of shaping our home experience, that we cultivate and silo our own kind of, if you will, kind of a home economic justice, that we've figured out our own culture and way to validate our family, those in our family, those in our spaces, and also not only validate, but also offer correction and information so that we can cultivate a language of love. Because a lot of people I know, look, not everybody on my side of my family, as evangelical as they are not ready to dive in deeply to a love that they have never experienced. If they've never placed certain things into question or brought them into question, not because they were curious or because they wanted to act out, but just to put themselves into question to find out how can they be better human reflections, right, of the love we want to see. My thing is that this conversation has to happen at home. Otherwise, someone is bound to be sexually harassed. Someone is bound to be manipulated. Someone is bound to be misunderstood based off of what areas of pedophilia. We look, because it comes from, but if you don't start the education in your home, other formations of violence start to take place because you decide not to go ahead and enter the space as a safe haven or a hub harbor where you can actually find refuge. These conversations offer refuge. They offer safety. They offer bravery. I never wanted my nephew to go out and smoke in the street. I'd rather for him to smoke at home. So let's have these kind of conversations at home. You know, let's have these conversations with grandma. Let's have these conversations. Tell me, grandma, how we get cousin such and such? Well, well, they not really our cousin. Oh, so y'all were really polyamorous. Oh, that's how that worked. Okay, yeah, that's polyamorous. I don't know what that is, baby. Baby, what is that? That means that y'all had a relationship with another person, and she knew about you, you knew about her, but y'all weren't trying. I've had them conversations. Trust me, it's tough. But then you bring them in, you usher them into a language where we can just be in refuge together, and it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing.
And I would also add to that, if you don't know the answer, don't answer the question. So if my family members, my friends, my students, whatever, they come and ask me questions about the LGBTQ plus community, who am I to answer the question? I have some knowledge, but I think it's really important for us to make sure that we stay in our lanes and go get educated and go get educators to support us and support these conversations so that we're not speaking out of turn. We're not speaking from something that we don't know and that we don't fully understand.
You said it already, or you pointed to it, Jay, and I'm going to open this up. I want all of you to discuss religion and spirituality as it comes into your home. So there's the sweeping argument, right? The Bible condemns gays rhetoric. So where do you point to in your spirituality? Where do you point to in the Bible? Where do you point to in your religion? Where do you point to when you're having this back and forth with people?
I think for me, so I grew up as far as like my father's side is Seventh-day Adventist, and then but I got Christian in a Sunday church, so I just didn't understand that conflict within itself. So, but it was like, I think like for me, one of the struggles that I had as far as like growing up, because I grew up in the church, but I always questioned the church. But I realized that after a while, I'm more of a spiritual person, because a church is a bunch of humans together deciding what their interpretation of the word is. So once I realized that, like for me, like as a child, I realized that I'm going to interpret this differently. And, I definitely prayed, and I definitely, I went to a college that was Christian orientated in like Rome, Georgia, in the middle of nowhere, where it's very like Caucasian. So I just wanted to go to a place where if I came out of this place still liking who I like, I knew I was supposed to be who I was. That's literally why I went to the school. So when I got to the school, it was just like they had like undercover clubs, and it was just like a different experience. But what I realized is that a lot of people hide their feelings through religion and hide how they really feel through the church, and it's not always what it's about. So I think you have to find out what's going to work for you and what words are going to work for you, and just take that and live the best version of your life that you can. Because if not, then you're going to live what someone thinks your life should be. And I don't think that's the best way to go about it at times. But I don't know. The thing about church and sexuality, it touches a little, and cultural. I'll throw in culture out there because, being from Caribbean, I don't even think it's religious. I think it's within the culture that, you know, they're just anti. I don't get it, but that's their problem, not mine. But I think it's just really, I do think you can be spiritual and live your life. And I think, you know, and I definitely thank God for people that have been able to be in the front and show the path that you can have both, because some people feel like you can't. And I think, you know, definitely thankful for everyone that does that.
I am going to definitely have to agree. My part is going to be short because me and religion. But so the question, where do you point to the Bible, in the Bible, to counteract the Bible condemns gays rhetoric? So first of all, the Bible is a huge book of contradictions, first of all. Every other verse says the opposite of the verse before that. So there's that. But also, people keep forgetting. And so like, it's very interesting to get into this topic of conversation because as I also grew up in the church, regrettably, but I also grew up in the church, and it is very, the word escapes me, but the church and and people's and like interpretations of the Bible are obviously very different, varying, but also people keep forgetting that no one sin, like, you know, is more, you know, is worse than the other. Like, and so like, if I'm going to head to the cookout and y'all are cooking scrimps on barbecue, huh? So I can't be gay. I can't like my man because what? Make it make sense. And so like, so using the Bible, like, and you as a human deciding to pick which sin is worse than the other is not godly, like, at all, frankly. And so, and as the slash, can you discuss your religion spirituality? I think I am, I'm not entirely, I'm in touch with my spirit and, you know, my energies and what I like to, you know, give off. But as far as like, as far as, not that I need to quote Katy Perry, but she said, and unconditionally, she said, acceptance is the key to be free. And I was like, Caitlin, this is a good quote. Me gusta. But I am very much, I'm very much the type of person where being religious or spiritual is like, it has been a hard journey for me, definitely, but I'm also not here to judge anybody else's journey. Look, the God I serve, she's cool, she's great, love her. And it's really all about love. Like it's all about love. And I not to be like super like hippie or whatever, but like, stop using God to hate. Like, that's tacky and overdone. Like, we've done that so many times. It's been a thing for forever. Let's move on. It's 2021. Okay. Let's move on to the next phase. Okay, thanks.
Stop using God to hate. We were enslaved in the name of the Lord. I mean, enslaved. And thank you so much for saying that, Jeremy, and sharing all that. The thing, you know, and I was raised in a very religious household. They keep prophesying that I'm a minister. I'm like, heard my mouth. Jesus. And I'm a Jesus lover and unashamed and unapologetic about it. The thing I say about religion is whatever you believe in, I just need you to believe in it 100%. I just need you to bring your 100% belief authenticity, your honesty, your realness as much as you possibly can. And if I do that from whatever my religion, my belief, whatever it is, if I start there, what would I do? What would I say? Who would I be? How would I show up? Because I believe that in all religions, what's at the foundation? What do they talk about is at the foundation? They say love. They say love. So if I start from there, what would I create? What conversation would I have with Jeremy from that place? Just believe in it.
You know, I think, oh, I see a question coming up. What is this? How many times does the Bible speak about gays? How many times does it talk about adultery? How many times does it talk about love? I personally feel that we should be focused on loving others. Thank you so much, E.B. Scott. I appreciate that. We're going to make sure we do that entry. Since we just read that from the book of Scott, I'm going to go ahead and start from there. All right.
He is not a plant.
Look, y'all know, I mean, look, my whole life, I'm just a preacher. I ain't even going to play you. You know, even though, but I'll be honest, right? I mean, here it is. I mean, I'm in a space of first thing I'm already thinking about. Jeremy, thank you for all the things that you have lavishly laid out before us, because one of the things I often think about when we talk of even, I'm like, I am identifiably a humanist. Most people wonder what that means or what that is. I'm a person who in many ways practices a tradition rooted conventionally in logic, reason, and understanding. I don't often prescribe to a deity or needing any kind of dogma to make that happen. Particularly though I am a Black liberated humanist, so I can be a little flexible, and I do like to tease out my theologies and ask several questions. I can almost seem like a little theological jerk if you're not careful. So I always say, come girded, because if you ain't girded, honey, you might get handed to you. Very simply, I'm still trying to figure out why you know, a woman who was particularly a virgin birthed a child, and the child came out to be a man because, of course, there's a chromosome missing, and everybody should realize that there is a chromosome missing when we talk about Jesus. I don't know where you got the pronoun he from, but if that's what you need to prescribe with that chromosome, you let me know how that works out for you, because that don't make sense. I'm sure God does things decent and in order, as the old folk would say. My ancestors would say it. My sanctified grandmother would say it. My mother would say it. Everybody knows how it works. And I know, for a matter of fact, I have no problem putting some palate and taste on the text. I think we have done a very good job, particularly within the Black church, with preaching and singing and making us feel good and coming out with messages of hope and things like that. But what concerns me is that we lack a church that in many ways lacks critical understanding, critical relationship, and critical contextual analysis. There are some phrases and some words that I could spend, I tell you honestly, I could teach a whole entire semester on, you know, queerness and the church. And I would love to do that, but I know we don't have that kind of time. But one thing is for sure is that when I think about my relationship with that which has become something I grew up in. I mean, I grew up Pentecostal. I don't think I could, I mean, I really enjoy the Black cultural experience. I enjoy the Black spiritual experience. It is something just beautiful about it. And one of the things I want to point out is my beloved sister, in one of her statements in one of these, she offered me something here. She says really fast, I want to answer this with this in mind. She says, can you add shame? This is Janet Stewart. She says, add shame. Would you like to add shame causes you to segregate yourself? This is where I find spirituality to be very significant, because the antonym to segregation is congregation. And we don't spend enough time. See, Let's reclaim some words. Can we do that, Jeremy? Can we just reclaim congregation so that we can go ahead and have a Monday mimosa with some of our queer friends?
Yes.
And have some moral mimosas and drink together, right? Because the first miracle was making wine, right? And like, can we just get together and have when 2 or 3 are gathered together? And that just is just some polyamory stuff right there. And we begin to take and make love to the text. Can we talk about Joseph for a few minutes and the fact that his father gave him a gown that was actually made for a girl, and in many ways he just sashayed across and nobody knew how great he was until he got onto the floor? Can we just reimagine the text for a few minutes? And I'm just wondering if I have can I just preach this like this for a second? Do I have a few good believers who want to do some belonging and want to do some becoming that don't mind reimagining the text so that you can see me just like I see you? I'm just saying.
Just start there.
I just wanted to let that hang just for a second, or just let it hang. And we'll take this idea of reimagine. We'll take this idea of just of the text, things that were said to you, things that you came up with. I'm wondering what was said to you. This is obviously for everyone, but what was said to you that did the most damage in your coming out story, and how did it impact you? How did you move through it? And this question comes from this idea of spirituality and religion. Sometimes we're leaning on these things, right? We're leaning on spirituality for guidance. And I'm wondering, in this part of how did you move through it, did spirituality have a part in it? So what was said to you that did the most damage in your coming out story? How did it impact you? How did you move through it?
I think for me, it was a combination of things. Family members, society telling me that I can never have the things that I just wanted to be married, to have a wife and a picket fence and children. I mean, I wanted the same things my heterosexual sister had. She just wanted a husband and I wanted a wife. And so I was determined to have everything that society said I couldn't have. Just because I was a lesbian, I couldn't be a mother, and the fact I couldn't have a wife. And I've had all those things. And I think that, that was the most just really traumatizing for me. But as a result of that, it made me work harder. I was more determined to show everybody, like, I'll show you because I'm going to have everything. And the fact that I have 2 grandchildren, I mean, I'm like, I have everything everyone said I couldn't have, but those were very traumatizing words, coming out so early. And, it just made me work extra harder, more, just to be more determined to succeed.
So as so technically, if we're being technical, I didn't have a coming out story. It's very much everyone assumed, because I'm a you now, or whatever. And so interesting. Interesting enough. So after my Vegas trip, I'm actually going to Michigan. Michigan's where I'm from Detroit. And so my plan is to have the talk with my parents. But the question says, what was said to you that did the most damage in your coming out story? And though it's not always words, it's not always something that's said. It's energy you pick up on. You can walk in a room and immediately tell when you can feel the homophobia, you can feel the race, just like you can feel the racism. Like then feelers will be out. So it hasn't always been for me what was said. Of course, like sure there, I've been, middle school or whatever, and Will and Grace will come on and somebody will flip the channel because it's Will and Grace. But flipping the channel because it's Will and Grace, and then the scoff when you flip the channel, that says way more. That it says so much. Or like, going to the mall and finding a masculine person walking around in a dress, or finding a feminine person, like in what is, masculine clothing, like with your parents, and they say something about it, or it's not directly to me. Like homophobia in my experience, especially in my familial experience, hasn't been really pointed directly at me, but I'm not stupid. And so I know if I were ever to say a lick of anything that you don't like, that's not something that I wanted to deal with as somebody that was living in my parents' house. And even now that I moved out and I'm 20,000 miles away from my parents in California, it's still a hard topic of conversation, because I'm a very, very full person and I like to tell the whole story. If I'm getting advice from my friends, I'm going to tell you my side of the story and their side of the story, because I like full, wholehearted advice. Like, I don't need yes people in my life. I need you to drag me if I need to be dragged. Okay. But if I'm going to come out to my parents, it would have to involve me basically telling them that you didn't know how to raise a gay person. You didn't know how to raise somebody of the queer community. And that is an entirely different conversation than talking about the generational differences, because we know baby boomers do not like to communicate at all. Because y'all weren't a fan, y'all were like, let's work, and we're like, okay, but we have feelings and those are important. And so it's very hard to like to think about and to like want to talk about like being gay, in this household. Even if I had a picture of Omarion and Taylor Lautner without no clothes from the J14 magazine on my wall, saying that, coming up to you and saying that is I feel like the energy already, and it's not going to be fun. So like, not only, I guess what I'm trying to say is, not only were the unspoken words and the actions like something that would deter me, it is what I know to be true of your reaction is what, excuse my French, but it's fucking terrifying. It's prime time terrifying, because as somebody who, at first generation college students, who it's very terrifying to be like, hey, guess what, parents who went through this whole sign up to school for me thing, I flunked out of school. It's very hard to say, hey, I'm also let's just layer the disappointments on top of each other. Let's make a cake. Let's do it. Let's frost it in trash and tears. And, and so I know that's going to be hard. And I guess that kind of ties into, kind of being fierce and vulnerable, because I have one of my friends always says there is power and vulnerability and strength in voicing the things that you feel. And doing that is going to be, I think it's going to be hard. To answer the second question, how did it impact you? How did you move through it? I haven't moved through it yet, but I predict it'll be hard, but I predict it'll be better in the future. Just, because I would love to see a positive outcome out of this. I think my parents are homophobic out of ignorance and not out of bigotry. And so I'm banking on that ignorance, because I would love to educate them.
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree that actions definitely speak louder than words. I had two coming outs technically, first as a lesbian and then 15 years later as trans. So the first time coming out, it was more about an action that damaged me. And our family pet passed away right before I was going back to college. And like I had gone to a family member for comfort. We were both crying. And this family member was like, you know what, no, and turned away. And it was just that like that dismissive act was just like, oh, you don't want to show me love and comfort. Like that was the act that I was like, wow, that hurts. I can get goosebumps now thinking about it.
Yeah.
I didn't move through it very well. I was not a mentally healthy 19, 20-year-old. But I got through it with probably a whole lot of crying and hitting things because that was my go-to back then. And then 15 years later, coming out as trans, it was probably, I mean, your thing didn't hurt as much. She swears that what she said to me when I came out to her is what bothers me.
It might have impacted me a little bit more because Cole and I had been growing very distant in our relationship, you know, as Cole was exploring where these feelings, where these emotions were really coming from, it was creating distance. And I was making that mean something about me that it had nothing to do with me. But of course, when you're in it, it's hard to see that. And so our relationship was very strained. And when Cole came out to me as trans, I kind of like knew it was happening. And my reaction was like, oh, so you're telling me you want to be a boy now? And like that hurts me now. Cole says it didn't really hurt him that much, but it was coming from that.
I mean, it doesn't now. That's not the worst thing that happened during that whole time.
Yeah. But that to me was like, you know, that's not my story, but like I felt so much shame in that. And I still kind of carry that a little bit because I wish I could have embraced it with loving arms. But what I found was that Cole coming out as trans happened to be that like antidepressant, like that we never knew he needed. Because as soon as that happened and Cole started aligning with his authentic self, our relationship started to blossom in a way that it never had. It just hadn't reached those heights yet. And it still does today. So happy ending there.
Bring it back down.
Yeah, bring it down, babe. Go ahead.
The most damaging thing that happened to me during my transgender coming out story was someone who I wouldn't really call a friend now at all. Said something along the lines of like, well, I've always, my cat is making an appearance. I've always known you as this person, so that's just who you're going to be to me. And just that immediate like, oh, so I'm telling you who I am and you're telling me that's not who I am. Like that was, get out of here. Like that was very damaging. And moving through that, I honestly moved into being a little bit more spiritual. I'm not a big fan of organized religion, but you know, I'd sit with myself and I'd get to know myself, and oh my gosh.
Oh, he wants to be on the panel too.
And you know, I learned to love myself, and I learned to get to know myself and feel who I was on the inside, and that was really what moved me through that.
I think for me, I had a slight feeling that me coming out was going to be like a big deal. So what I did was I sent out my wedding invitations to my family, and that was my coming out. So yeah, so I didn't actually have to say anything to my family. I sent out the wedding invitations, but before I think we sent it out, Naisha, my wife, actually came out to my mother and told her who she was in my life. So I guess I didn't have to physically do it, but I think like one of the worst things that I experienced throughout that was more of I'm like a daddy's girl, you know what I'm saying? So what he says matters, but I knew this wouldn't be the right thing to say to him. So I didn't necessarily tell him about the wedding. He kind of heard it through the family. I wasn't inviting him to the wedding because I knew he wasn't gonna come. But like one of my friends spoke to him, and he said he would rather me be in an abusive relationship with a man than marry a woman I love.
Wow.
And I think like hearing like those words from like my father was like shit. But it was hard. Like I think it was hard, but I knew it was happening. But I knew it wasn't, I just knew he didn't understand. And I think like as I gave like time and stuff like that, I realized that I also didn't give him as much time to kind of deal with the situation because I just kind of got married. But I think it's those different things, you know, between him and then my aunt, because my mother was very supportive, even though I think it took her time to like understand. Even with my aunt, just talking to my mother and telling her, why are you supporting your child? And she's like in the room, like, it's my child. Like, what do you want me to do? Like, it's my child. So she has to deal with other family members, questioning why she's supporting. But I think it's like those two interactions. I think going through that was probably like the hardest thing to go through, and just to kind of like be at peace and then forgive him for where he was at and forgive him. Yeah. But yeah, that was probably like the hardest thing to deal with. And to kind of just keep pulling through and still living my life. So yeah.
I'm hearing a theme, and with these coming out the stories with this idea, and the idea is that you all had time, there was time between yourself and coming out, and this coming out, I would let me get to this question. How about this? This will help me. If queerness is a spectrum, and this is what I'm talking about as far as like the time that you had, if queerness is a spectrum, do you find yourself at a fixed point on it or moving through it? Can you explain that?
I would say that I'm moving. I think, as I've been listening to everybody's coming out and coming in stories, I know for me, like, to kind of even piggyback on to this question with the previous question too, is like, I couldn't be a minister because I was HIV positive. So, and I went in confidence to talk to my pastor about that. And I remember not being able to be validated in ministry or anything. So everything was stripped from me. And then, of course, then I proceeded to go to theology school after, because you got to tell me, you can't tell me that God stops moving in my life. And you can't tell me that everything about my life is over, all because your book says so, or because your teaching says so. And that just didn't happen for me. And so I think, so like when I think about my own, the multiple ways in which I had to, if it wasn't for HIV, I wouldn't be called in. If it wasn't for that, I would not have understood and loved myself in my full authentic self enough to affirm the fact of who I was. But that affirmation was not just a standstill. It was an establishment of me saying, I'm choosing to evolve, right? I'm choosing to evolve. I'm choosing to grow. I'm choosing to learn, and I'm choosing to fall in love with the learning of myself. I'm choosing to do that because I deserve that. And as a result, being on the spectrum has always, I had to grasp almost, it was like, if I looked at every letter that I was like, these are great categories, but I'm just flowing through all of them. Like, I'm like, okay, let's tangle with this. Like, oh, okay. Like, I get the hots for someone who is a femme, lesbian, queer. Like, I'm just like here for it. I'm like, oh, like, what is that? Yes, give me. And it's just my thing, and it's not, and it has nothing to do with like, oh, you're specifically in this area and this is how I should identify you. It really is it is forever growing, forever evolving. And I think that's in much of being able, for me, has always helped me let go of dead weight. I think we carry a lot of dead weight as queer folk, especially as Black queer folk.
Mm-hmm.
We carry so much dead weight. And I am a firm believer that you've got to get rid of that stuff in order for you to really realize your own beingness, you know, because people will tell you what you are to be. Mm-hmm. They will give you a box and put you in and say, this is what you are to be. But if you get some good folk, if you circle yourself with some good folk who believe in your evolution just as much, you in many ways fall into a beingness that it is ever becoming and ever belonging. And so it is hard to tie myself down to one arena. I mean, it just don't work that way for me.
I'm gonna have to agree. All of that. Well, wait, you're over here. All of that was a big mood. I like to point to people's boxes. But yeah, it's very much a sliding scale. You know, I will, you know, put on my inlines or my, you know, 4 points and go on and skate from the G to the B. If I skate down to the B to the like I just it's not about like it's not about people's perception of you. It is not about like, oh, well, you said cis, so you must be one of the girls. Or, you know what I mean? Like, or you're a girl, but you know, you dress like this, so you must be a lesbian. You know, it's not about you. It's fully about me. It's fully about like what I feel. And I think that is a very hard idea for people to grasp. It's a very hard topic for people to experience somebody who is like, yeah, I liked boys today, but today I'm dating Hannah because you know, and especially when and that kind of like moves like weirdly into like just like, you know, like very much like this weird, like, you know, like, well, at least from my experience personally, from a weird, like, a femophobic, misogynistic kind of point. Because it's like, you're a super femme kind of person. So what girl would date you in their point of view? Or what other femme person would date you? What else are you gonna do? Bump purses? You know, it's very much that energy. And so like that doesn't just apply to cisgender straight people. That can apply to, you know, the LGBTQ community as well, like to the queer folks as well. Just because I'm not like a masculine energy person does not mean, you know, like I don't like, you know, feminine energy people. Just because I'm not this or what you perceive as this doesn't mean I don't like. And so like it's very much like rooted in respect and rooted in like, hey, either I don't get it and I want to learn, or don't get it and I don't want to learn. And if you don't want to learn, then you can move the fuck on. And if you do want to learn, then I'm 100% willing to talk to you about it. I'm 100% willing to educate you. But don't come in here with your gross, nasty, downtrodden ass, knuckle dragging ass fucking opinions about what you think is what's supposed to go. Okay. And not try to actually listen and not try to actually, you know, like, if you want to rant, just say that. If you want to rant, like, like, and talk about some bullshit, just say that. Like, don't come in here and on the pretense or on the pretense of trying to understand if that's not actually what you want to do. So if queerness is a spectrum, I find myself, you know, on the gay most days, but like I said, it depends on the day. It depends on the day. It depends on how much liquor I done had. It depends on what men's are talking to me or what women's are talking to me or what person is talking to me. So
Now, if I had some pearls, I would be clutching them right now.
I stay candid. Okay.
See,
Well,
and for me,
I'm
I
sorry.
feel like
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. You can go ahead. No, you can go ahead.
Are you
I'll
sure,
go after
sweetie?
you. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I would have to say on the spectrum, I've always been fixed. I think I was just born a lesbian child. And when I was bullied in high school and college, you know, the girls were worse. They would bully me worse than the boys. And, they would think they were hurting me by calling me a dyke and a carpet muncher. I was like, yes, bitch, I am. But that's just who I think God made me to be. This is who I've always been. And, I've always, I'm more of a spiritual person. And I just think that God doesn't make mistakes. So, this is who I am. And, you have to take me or leave me, again. And then we talk about, when I was bullied in school, and then we talk about assumptions. And, the young women would look at me and, they would assume that I was straight or bisexual, so that was just confusing for me because I was like, well, this is just who I am. I can't help that I like girls, so I would have to say that I've always been, on the spectrum fixed, definitely. Thank you,
Yes.
Cole.
Oh, absolutely. I love that answer. I would say for me, if I say that I'm at a fixed point, it doesn't allow any room for change in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm at a stopping point. I'll say I'm at a stopping point and I'm comfortable where I am, but I don't want to put myself in a box to not allow for that identity to change in another 15 years. Because who knows? I have no idea where I'll be in 15 years.
Yeah. I tried to put myself in a box multiple times. I went from straight to lesbian to bi, back to lesbian, back to bi. Then
you're just hitting all the letters.
A few years ago, I didn't know what pansexual was, and now I might identify with that. But I think it's more of an exploration and not always a destination. If you find yourself at a place where you feel like you've landed, excellent. You can stay there as long as you want, but you can also take the next flight out. So that's how I see it.
I like Spirit Airlines. I'll fly anytime.
I love that Jeremy looks at everyone whenever you're saying something to him. You're like, yeah.
I have to make sure y'all know that I am enjoying what you're saying. You have
It's
to
like Hollywood Squares.
Yeah.
Nika, I felt like you were about to say.
Yes. Just to get in on this question, the conversation of a spectrum. I love all the answers that have come up. It gets me into the thoughts around gender normativity and like being in a box, being controlled. These ideas that whether you're inside the LGBTQ community or you're outside of it, that you have to fit into this masculine, feminine paradigm. To address the question for myself, I see it as the more that we evolve and explore and discover what sexuality is, and the more we define that, the more language is going to come from it. So there was a time when I was bisexual, and there was a time when I was pansexual, and then I'm demisexual, and like all these different things. And there's more and more language. So I love, like, take a flight out very next time. Like there's always something coming down the pipeline because the future is being created and sexuality is being created and defined more and more. We're getting more language for it. We're getting more comfortable with it. And I ultimately pray that it does not stop, that we keep exploring and evolving and creating new ways to relate to it, because it is one of the healthiest things, and it's why we're here.
All right, we're gonna shift. We're shifting gears. So the questions we've got some time. So these are gonna be, we're gonna take some answers and we'll move on through them. I'm putting on my non-Shannon hat. Okay, my Clutch My Pearls hat. That's what
Oh
I'm
Lord.
gonna put on my Clutch My Pearls hat. Okay, this is all these questions are from Clutch My Pearls Shannon. So that's where they're from. Okay, answer them if you would like, but know that they're coming from a place where people have these questions, and they deserve to be heard. Here we go. Parents are the role models for children. I don't mind same-sex marriage, but gay couples run the risk of turning their straight children gay by modeling that behavior. Don't you want your children to make their own choices? Can you speak to that? Can you speak to Clutch My Pearls, Shannon, on that?
Yes. I so like I said before, I would very much rather educate someone who is not knowing than someone who is a bigot. Because if you're a bigot, you can get dragged, you can catch these hands and these words anytime. But um, don't you want children to make their own choices? Um, so me, okay. My parents have been straight, married for 47 years. And I am, for the most part, gay as hell. I've had a lot of straight best friends who to this day are still, unfortunately, straight. Um, being straight is not a choice. And being straight is not the default. The same way being gay isn't a choice or the default. It's and to give another example, like I know two women who had this super buff, scary, masculine, football dude who was very straight, as a kid. It's not anything, it doesn't have to do with your parenting. And I need parents to stop, like straight parents to stop thinking that my being gay, my sexuality is a result of your parenting, and that my being gay is a bad thing, because it's not. So even if it is a result of your parenting, as you so think to believe, it's still not a bad thing. You didn't do anything wrong. Where you messed up at was how to raise said gay person, but that's not the point. The point is that the point is that children, children, they do make their own choices. We do grow up our own people. And so it doesn't matter what sexuality our parents are, what we grow into is what we grow into. And so, and the reason I know, and Monica, you spoke about bullying, which is, yes. I mean, I'm so sorry and I hate that, because I feel you, but also, yes, because if I had a choice not to get my ass whooped as a fucking child at school for reasons that I couldn't figure out at the time, then I would choose otherwise.
Right. Who would choose this? Right. Exactly.
Who would choose? Thank you. Who would choose to get there? Who would choose to get called names every day? Who would choose to get their ass whooped every day? Y'all was in my book bag stealing my Yu-Gi-Oh cards. I'm still mad about it, because where's my dark magician? But no one would choose that. No, you would choose the option that doesn't break your bones. You would choose the option that doesn't hurt you for years past what you can even imagine. Being bullied, growing up in that type of environment at school, and then coming home and worrying about my parents finding out so I don't get whatever punishment it could be for the day. And let's not talk about punishment with Black parents. But me being that, I'm not going to choose being uncomfortable. So yes, children are going to make their own choices, and they should, because they will grow up to be their own people, and that is what is supposed to happen. But we're not going to choose to be uncomfortable. We're not going to. We didn't choose this. This wasn't a choice to make you think that we're sinning by breathing. It wasn't our choice to make you think that that you fucked up as a parent because we like what you didn't think we thought, what you didn't think you thought we were going to like. Yeah.
I see
FT
Mika.
said, yeah.
I see Mika snapping and nodding. Yes.
I'm not gonna choose harm upon myself. And nobody in their right mind, gay, straight, trans, whatever you are not finna choose harm upon yourself if you do not have to. So what other reason is like, what do you think I'm picking when I pick gay is the question to that question. What do you think I'm picking when am I just trying to be difficult? Is that what you think this is? This is it just that question just baffles me. But like I said, I'm very much here for like educating, and I'm very much here for people understanding that this isn't a choice. We didn't choose this. Just the same way you didn't choose to be straight. It works both ways. And that's just gonna be that on that. Yeah.
I've always been very honest with my son. I was the first in my circle of friends, I was the first lesbian to have a child. And I was like, who's society to tell me I can't be a mother because I'm a lesbian? And, people would say, well, oh my God, what are you going to tell him when he asks you? And I said, well, when he's old enough to ask me and know the difference between the way that I love my partner and the way that I love a platonic friend, then I'm going to be honest with him. And I just wanted him to know that whether he was straight or whether he was gay or bisexual, that I would always love and support him, and he happens to be heterosexual. But if he wasn't, I was still going to love my son. People would doubt, they would be so crass, like, oh, what if he, likes a real feminine man or a drag queen? Or I was like, you better take care of my damn son. That's all I know. So I just wanted him. And then, especially with boys, but children, you got to keep it, make it light sometimes. And I would just tell him, shoot, you need to be glad somebody looking at your ass. You ain't that cute anyway. Be glad somebody is looking at you, honey. Ain't nobody thinking about you. You're so crazy, Jim.
All right, we're gonna do. Let's see if we can get through a couple more. So, I shouldn't have to risk being tricked in my relationships. If you just stayed how you were born, then it would save everyone confusion and pain. Speak to that.
Look at the faces. Like, we're like, what?
I was like, who's trying to trick who?
Yeah, I'm just I'm throwing bullshit.
Did this come from
can we just talk about
a personal story? Like, what happens?
So you want to tell us, Shannon? Like,
context.
These are. Listen, I am telling you, these are from Clutch Their Pearls, Shannon. These are legitimate concerns from people, and I am voicing them without judgment.
It sounds like that's someone who is referring to relationship with someone who is transgender. And in that situation, I think it depends on, that's person to person. If someone didn't disclose that they're transgender beforehand, that's a conversation that needed to happen between those two. I don't think it's a matter of anybody trying to trick anybody. It's a matter of people trying to live authentically, people trying to live happily, and people just trying to live,
Right.
And that's really all there is to it. I'm not trying to trick anybody into thinking I am anything. I am who I am. And that's just all there is to it.
And if you need somebody to stay the same forever, they make dolls for that. So
good point. They do make dolls for that. I think they're kind of expensive, but they make them.
I'm with Cole and Danielle. I mean, it's funny because as you heard it, Cole, I heard it from the polyamorous standpoint. And I was like, oh, really? Because immediately, like, as a person who's polyamorous, the first thing that you think is like everybody has the same relational configuration and they're expected to operate in that same kind of monogamous vein. And, coming out as polyamorous trust me, it was a lot more hell than coming out as queer for me. And I think like, just the constant, like, how do you do that? Like, why would you do that? Don't you find yourself to be unfaithful? And it's like, no, I'm being authentic. I'm not only sexually evolving, I am relationally evolving. And we don't talk about that. And even with both of these questions, there's a real need to have a conversation about how people create expectations on relationships and how they are driven by a toxicity that is informed by the institution of either marriage and heteronormative frameworks of marriage, because that is not what queerness does. I tell anybody, I'm queer as in fuck you. That's how queer I am. And so that just means that I want to decolonize the space. I want to rearrange the space with you. And if you do not mind, I'm glad to dance with you in this space as we rearrange it, because that's what needs to take place. So when I think about these questions, can we even just talk about the fact that there are so many unhealthy relationships and people get involved in relationships while they are unhealthy and come into them and then expect for somebody to be the medicine for their relationship? And you worried about when somebody decided to tell you the truth and present their authentic self or be fierce and vulnerable because you were not fierce and vulnerable. When you stepped in, you basically went ahead and performed a relationship. You cooked for them when you don't always cook. You went ahead and took a shower when you don't take a shower every day. You went ahead and put your hairpiece on today when you know you don't wear no hairpiece every other day. You came home and you got an attitude and you stank, but you go ahead and you act like you got joys and sunshines and rainbows and lollipops coming out your behind. There is nothing real and authentic about that unless we really want to have a real conversation about how people need to get in better, healthy conditions to be in better relationships, not only with others, but with themselves. I ain't the cat out the bag. You are, honey. You just realized you ran into something that you don't want to tell the truth about.
Go, Sophia.
Oh, that's all I got. Just
When I heard the word truth, as we say, now we have one more question. We're going to see if we got one more question. Here we go. Queer people may be just as strong physically, but they are not mentally, and that is why they should not serve in the military. Why would you want to put your own people at risk by putting them in the military?
Well, this question is, of course, very near and dear to my heart. And, it's interesting to me that people who make those kind of statements, they've never served. And there have been studies and research that shows that LGBTQIA individuals in the armed forces, they do not erode the cohesiveness of soldiers. So, to break it down for you, again, I not only served as a medic in the military, I served in wartime. I served in Iraq, the Gulf War. And if you can imagine, I was blessed to have a gay ambulance partner. It was two of us in the ambulance. So I was like, oh, thank God, I know he's going to take care of me. But imagine having to drive through a pitch dark desert and you meet this helicopter. The only light out there is the helicopter lights. So we run out with our gurney and we meet the frontline medics, and they help us move an injured tanker from their gurney to ours. And he feels like dead weight, but he's not dead. He's just in and out, because he doesn't realize that his leg has been blown off. So at that moment, do you really think that his mother, his father, his grandparents, his children, do you think any one of those people care who I choose to love? No, you just want me to get him back to an evac site. So when you talk about the intersectionality of who I am in that scenario, first, the Army breaks you down to be a soldier, okay? So first, I was a soldier. Then I was a medic. Then I was Black. Then I was a woman. And then I was a lesbian. Do you see how far on the totem pole my sexuality has to do with anything? So when I hear about that, it's just baffling, because again, if you've never served, you can't talk to me.
Period. That's all.
Yeah, they better be excited that the original lesbian saved them.
It's a crazy call.
Friends and family. On period. Right? Thank you. Yes,
Thank you, Sophia.
you all.
Thank you, Shannon.
Yes, of course. Sophia, we are wrapping up. Before we wrap up, Sophia, before you take us to complete wrap, is there anything else anyone else has to say? These are the words that will ring on in infinity forever. For the people who are watching, the people who are at home, everyone who is supporting you and excited to be part of this conversation.
I just want to say to all the panelists that I am so proud of you for living your authentic life, because it's often a very challenging task that we have. So I'm just really proud of you. I'm proud of us.
I just want to say, spread love, be love, continue to spread it.
I just want to say thank you, Shannon and Sophia, for having and creating this conversation. And thank you for everyone out there actually listening and being willing to be a part of discussions like this. This is how we get into the future that we dreamed of.
Thank you, Sophia. Thank you, Shannon.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you. As I normally conclude, actually tonight would have been my show. So I'm glad to actually share in this space with you, and just take that moment and just say thank you so much for having me. In addition to just love yourself in the process, and may goodness and sexy follow you all the days of your life.
No, I would like to say thank you for having us. I was supposed to leave, but I just couldn't leave. So I thank you guys.
We were so glad.
And holding the space. But what I will say is, definitely take time to love yourself. But as everyone here did, please continue to share your story, because it's our stories and our journeys that uplift our community. And knowing that other people survived it and other people were able to overcome their struggles, that has definitely helped me through my growth and process. So I think it is, it's important for us when we get to a moment of light, for us to make sure that we're lighting up, darkness for others.
Yes, big thanks to everyone. I guess my parting words would just be, don't let that shame whip your ass. Reclaim it in any way possible. Okay, introduce yourself with your pronouns. Make spaces comfortable for you. You deserve to be in whatever space you're in, just because you're there and breathing in it. Okay, so let's make sure we keep that in mind. You are human, and you deserve to be wherever you are. Period.
Sophia?
I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you again. I am so grateful. Naisha and Samantha, Shannon, Mark, Cole, and Danielle, Monica, Reverend Dr. J, Exodus Hooper, McGilla Cuddy. Thank you. Thank you so much, Jeremy. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, Nika. Thank you, Sheila, and thank you, Yinka, and thank you, Camry, behind the scenes, making all of this happen. I am so grateful for your fierce vulnerability. Thank you for using your voices tonight. Thank you for speaking for the people who cannot speak, the people who want to speak and they open their mouths and words don't come out. I know you touched them. I know that because my phone's blowing up, so I know you did, and I'm grateful for that. And then I have a challenge for all of you is to think about how you will bring fierce vulnerability every single day. Every single day. Fierce vulnerability, starting with bringing fierce vulnerability in your love of yourself, and all of you have talked about tonight. I also lastly have a challenge for corporations. I'm talking about specifically to these companies that continue to put up the acronyms, the LGBTQIA plus ABC, but you're not doing diddly squat for this community. You're using these acronyms to go under another umbrella of acronyms called diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. I'm calling you forth. I'm challenging you to really back up what your website says. Back it up with support for this community, with education of folks who are not in this community. It's my challenge. Thank you, everybody. God bless.
Thank you, Sophia. Thank you, Shannon.
Of course.
Thank you,
all.
panelists.
Yes. Friends and family, those of you who are watching, this has been a conversation. This is the Fierce Vulnerability Summit, a conversation about and a celebration of colored girls' truths, trials, and triumphs. We've explored what it means to be Black, proud, and part of this community, and of course, what it means to be fiercely vulnerable. Thank you, Sophia, for gathering us, and good night.
Night.
Good night. Oh, and pick up the book.